Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Thanks for joining us. Robert Stephenson down for the year in year one of an Angels contract. The Dodgers sinking like a stone, and it's time to pencil them in for last in the NL West, obviously. Plus, Jack Leiter debuts. If you were trying to watch that during today's show, good news, he's already out of the game and was a long time ago. Bad news, you probably weren't satisfied with the outcome. Here to break it all down on the second show of the week, the Thursday live stream, is FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. Robert, thank you for joining me. And your Dodgers panic meter is an 11 out of 10, I assume, right?
Oh, yeah, 55 out of 10. It's well, they're still in first place, so the panic meter is not too high. But I know we'll be diving into that here in a little bit. But I appreciate everyone who's tuned in, watching the show here. Adam Weinrib, how are you doing? Everything good?
Everything is good with me, I would say. Very good. I'm alone this weekend. It's a bachelor weekend with my boy Biscuit. My wife is otherwise tied up. So first weekend at home alone with Biscuit, I think ever, weirdly. Oh. So probably going to get I'm going to come back to the apartment. He's going to be on the couch sitting like an adult man, enjoying a beverage, eating a bag of chips. But other than that, I'm good. And you know who else is good? Anyone who chose to watch this show and sign up for a DraftKings account using our code, which is Baseball Insider. If you do that, you're a new user. You can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $200 in bonus bets when you sign up with that code Baseball Insider. I'm not a math major, nor am I a whiz of any kind, but 5 becoming 200 is significantly more. You'll also receive one no-sweat single-game parlay every single day. The best part is you'll get both rewards, even if your first bet loses. Using our code Baseball Insider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports the podcast. You've been considering signing up for DraftKings, and by the way, not to throw dirt on the ad read, but who's been considering signing up for DraftKings for like 2.5 years, and then finally here's me today, and they're like, oh, DraftKings. Look, let's be real. You've heard of DraftKings, but if you want to try it out, you haven't yet, you've been too nervous, Baseball Insider is the code. It'll maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus, physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check that episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And while you're there, signing up for DraftKings, why not join the Discord as well? You'll get free member perks. By free, I mean paid. You'll get paid member perks. You won't get free ones, unfortunately. But if you sign up at the All-Star level, you can join us on our private Zoom, which is actually tonight. It's monthly. Today, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll do it again next month. We owe everybody one, so we're going to do doubles. I'll talk to them about that tonight. I think probably if I were the All-Stars, I would want my double episodes around the trade deadline or when the buzz is a little hotter. But hey, let us know, All-Stars. We'll see you later tonight. If you haven't signed up for the Discord yet and you want to, go ahead and join us. We'd love to have you. You become the most informed fan, and you would get Robert's insight on what exactly has catastrophically gone wrong with the 2024 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Should we take the ring away? Are they still a super team? Have they still won the World Series in December? Or is it time to start questioning? Because, look, we're joking. Too soon to Dodgers panic, obviously. Neither of us are Dodgers panicking, but there are some holes on this roster, and I think more than anything else, it just goes to show this is pro-Dodgers, not anti-Dodgers. Bunch of people who hate the Dodgers this offseason were like, oh, it's a super team. It's embarrassing. Yamamoto, Ohtani, Glasnow. I mean, what's next? Teddy Roosevelt, the whole Mount Rushmore, just going to start signing American icons. They needed help. They weren't a complete roster. And they're still not, because they're showing clear flaws 2.5 weeks into the season.
Oh, they absolutely are. And before I dive into this, Andrew Lee is accusing me of being a secret Dodgers fan. That is, I grew up a Giants fan, so that kind of hits a little bit different here. Not a fan of any team now. I want to make that abundantly clear, but I am not a secret Dodgers fan. But yes, as you were alluding to, they do have issues. Like the bottom of their lineup has been kind of a disaster to start, and that has not gone according to plan at all. They've tried a bunch of different players. That's kind of what prompted the Andy Pages call up, just so they can try something different in the outfield, and they're really high on him. We'll get into him in a little bit, but their issues also stem from not just the bottom of the lineup, but you look at the bullpen, the James Paxton as well, as we were talking about pre-show as well. It's just a mix. There's a bunch of different issues with this team. They clearly have all world talent atop that roster, but there's flaws with it. And you also got to wonder too, how much different would the bottom of their lineup look like had they ended up moving on from Gavin Lux rather than Michael Busch? That could have changed a lot. Who knows if Busch would end up having the same success with the Dodgers? Like, we don't know that. But it's a question that I've pondered, and I'm sure other people around the Dodgers have kind of pondered the same thing. But I think they're going to be fine. I mean, that if you look at the talent overall in that team, they're going to get Clayton Kershaw back at some point. I think they're going to be fine. But if I was looking for them for potential trade deadline targets or trade deadline areas to try to improve, I think a bottom of the order bat would be one, and then also maybe a proven closer to provide some stability in the ninth, because they thought they had a bunch of different options in the ninth inning. They thought Ryan Brazier was going to be in someone there, but I think adding another high-end reliever in the late innings, I think that would make a lot of sense for them.
I like Kyle Hurt. I think give Kyle Hurt more of a chance to put his footprint on this roster instead of using him. They're shuttling a lot of guys up and down right now. Like, if you didn't get to meet Ricky Vanasco the other day, you don't get to, because he's already in AAA. They've been moving people up and out like crazy. Taylor Trammell was a Dodger for 6 at-bats. Now he's a Yankee. They claimed him like 5 minutes before this podcast started. Tons of roster movement for a team that, again, stacked top of the order, like you said. But every Dodger fan is thinking right now about Michael Busch and Gavin Lux. Such is fandom. They're thinking about the bullpen ERA. They're 18th in baseball right now, and that's after a pretty good week. 14 walks in Sunday's game, most in a game since 1962. That was a Padres win on Sunday Night Baseball. James Paxton got the start. Treinen on his way back. Brusdar Graterol still a ways away. CJ Abrams and the Nats come in and take a series this week. Ohtani 1 for 19 with RISP this week. And look, RISP normalizes. He'll be fine. But he swung at the first pitch in 3 straight at-bats with runners in scoring position, which was weird enough for Dave Roberts to note it and go, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, we're going to address it. So time to panic? Absolutely not. Time to put up Bleacher Report graphics about how the Dodgers have lost 3 series of their last 4? Absolutely. The internet traffic's in clicks. We want to talk about the Dodgers because they were going to be the story of the season before it started. They've already become the story of the season by being a little bit less dominant in the early going than some might have hoped. Fans certainly hope for more. Haters obviously are thrilled, so probably thrilled, but 12-9, first place team in the NL West right now. I will say I am going to watch Yamamoto against the suddenly frisky Mets tomorrow night at Dodger Stadium. That is appointment television for me. Not that I think it's going to be something you can judge the Dodger season on. Not going to mean much in the grand scheme of things, but the Mets are hot out east. They've been greater than the sum of their parts for about a week and a half now. Yep. You know, Tyrone Taylor, this unknown bullpen, Severino, a bunch of people who Harrison Bader's been good. They made a Aroldis Chapman meltdown. Fun Mets homestand. Now they go out west. Now they get a real challenge. And Yamamoto needs a challenge as well. So that's a big one. It is. You want to talk about me and Biscuit at home. I think we're probably going to carve out some time to watch the Mets and Dodgers late on Friday night. That's fun to me. That's how I have my fun.
No, that's fun to me too. That should be fun to anybody who's a baseball fan. And you look at the Mets, like it was what they're trying to build is something similar to what the Brewers had under David Stearns. Is they want to be a team that is reliant on really good pitching and also really good defense. And obviously, we're starting to see bits and pieces of that. Like they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. And also, I'm glad you mentioned Tyrone Taylor and also Harrison Bader. Having seen Tyrone Taylor up close and personal in Milwaukee and watching his defense, he's really good defensively. He is someone who I thought that was a pretty savvy move by the Mets to acquire him in the offseason. But they're showing signs of getting to the point where they want to be. I think they still have a lot of work to do. I think they're a good team, but I think considering where they're at with the roster building process, they're still a little ways away for sure. But Stearns clearly had a plan this offseason, and that was to give them as many pitching options as possible and also to improve their defense. The first series against Milwaukee was kind of not great and made it seem like there was maybe some cracks in the plan, but they're bouncing back. They look good, and it gives you some hope into what they can eventually become and why Stearns was such a highly coveted executive once he left Milwaukee.
Yeah, season not over, and even if the season was over, the future is pretty bright for whatever the Mets seem to be building. LA called up, like we say, Pages for a debut this week. Already smashed a single in his first at-bat, and that meant he had as many hits this year as Chris Taylor on the season in like 30-plus ABs, so that seems to matter. Jack Leiter's debut, which was much ballyhooed today against the Tigers. I don't think the 8-7 score is what people were hoping for, especially when he entered the game, struck out the first batter he faced, 98 on the black, got praise from, I believe it's Craig Monroe in the booth saying that the changeup is evil. So early inning, Jack Leiter had everything working. You start to think, okay, he's shaking off, his minor league struggles. He's getting to that pedigree, that draft pedigree, that top of the 2021 draft, the guy we saw coming out of Vanderbilt. Falls apart in the second with a 4-0 lead. That game gets tied. Again, it's now 8-7 to date this a little bit. He will not factor into the decision. He allows 7 runs, ultimately does not get through 4 innings. It's hard. You can't brand anyone anything, but it's safe to say against the Tigers offense, it's been scuffling a little bit lately. The Tigers were all over him in that second inning, and they were swinging and making hard contact against pitches that were not even necessarily on the plate. Something Leiter was doing was not translating. He was not the stuff was not crisp. The stuff was not particularly well located, but when it was, they were still getting good swings on him. Too soon to judge. No one is judging, but this was not what you wanted to see.
No, it was definitely not what you wanted to see. And I mean, as soon as he ended up having his first strikeout for his first batter, I was thinking, okay, this is going to set the tone for the rest of the day. Thought that was going to calm some nerves against a Tigers lineup that's been scuffling. And all of a sudden, that second inning happens and disaster just strikes. And you look at that, and obviously that's not exactly how you want a highly everyone's been looking forward to this debut is what I'm trying to say. And watching that result, not great, but in the end, I think it's a guy making his major league debut. There's obviously going to be a lot of eyes on him. There's going to be a lot of nerves. And I think that's kind of what contributed to it. And I also had someone mention this to me is you look at Jack Leiter, obviously immensely talented pitcher, but you look at the people who are around him. You got Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, who are 2 of the best pitchers of this generation. And then also the impact of having pitching coach Mike Maddox around him too. And he is as respected of a pitching coach, I think, as there is in baseball. And he's drawn rave reviews from countless people who have worked with him. And for those 3 reasons, or those 3 people, along with the talent and the pedigree that he has, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. I think he's going to end up being a really, really, really good pitcher. But just the start wasn't great. But I'm not sounding the panic button. You know me. I'm glass half full always, but especially with a talented pitcher like Jack Leiter here.
Well, if he was a Dodger, we would be mashing the panic button. But since he's a Ranger, he's got time to figure it out.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's crazy how this baseball world works, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. Well, I mean, hey, we might as well. We got a couple quick hits to get through. Got to pivot to probably the worst news of the week, especially if you are an Angels fan. I know we have plenty of viewers and listeners who are. Robert Stephenson, pretty much the only move they made this offseason, committed big money to. That's a tough one already. He's a Rays reliever with like a half season of great production, $11 million a year for someone who's not necessarily a closer. Relatively big money for someone with a short track record, coveted free agent, right? You can't look in the rearview mirror and say, wow, nobody wanted the Angels outbid the field. Everybody was interested in Robert Stephenson, but he starts the year on the IL with a shoulder issue. While rehabbing that shoulder issue, comes down with an elbow issue, and now he will miss the year. That does result in an extra cheaper year added to the contract, I believe. So the Angels do lower the AAV somewhat and get another year of control on Stephenson. but hard to imagine an offseason ending. Give the Angels credit for Ron Washington, who just might be a culture changer and has them playing hard. And Mike Trout is playing out of his mind right now. And some things are going right for the Angels. Mike Trout bounced back, chief among them. But couldn't be a worse offseason in terms of player personnel. Losing Ohtani, make one signing. It's a middle reliever who won't pitch for you. Never sign a former Ray. Don't do it. Never do it. Doesn't matter what the price is. Do not do it.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you, like, this was a legit disaster offseason for the Angels. They were connected to a lot of big names. They had Mike Trout pushing for these big names. Even heard Perry Manassian say that they ended up that they were open to it. But yet they swung and missed, and their big offseason addition, Robert Stephenson, is out for the year without even throwing a pitch. And that is a really tough pill to swallow for this Angels team. And it also stems, if you look back earlier in the offseason, Stephenson obviously drew a lot of interest. There was at least one other team, I'm sure there was probably more, who had some concerns about his medicals, and it gave him pause. But the Angels overall, they looked at it, they were aware of it, and yet they still ended up going out and signing him. It looks like a huge mistake now. Obviously, they get the cheaper option for the 4th year, but as far as a big ticket free agent move, it could not have started out any worse. And it leaves that team in a very precarious position. And if we want to be more positive about the Angels here, I think you're spot on about Ron Washington being a culture setter. I thought that was a home run hire for them when they ended up making it. But you can only, he doesn't have a lot of talent to work with. He's getting the most out of it right now. I wonder if he can keep doing it throughout the rest of the year, but that team needs more talent. And I think the offseason whiff of Robert Stephenson, along with some of the other pretty underwhelming moves, is going to make Perry's seat even hotter. And that could be one to watch throughout the year, or even at the end of the year, because, Artie Moreno, he is as unpredictable and as volatile as any owner in baseball, and also just sports in general.
It's a weird one, too, because we're used to the Angels starting relatively hot with Ohtani. Everybody's saying, okay, this is the year where they put it together. And then comes the cold snap. So far this year, they're not starting hot. They're playing 500 baseball. And that seems like maybe their ceiling. But we don't know where the floor is necessarily. And if they have the same cold streak, or if they lose Trout for an extended period of time, that would make things look all the worse. That would make Artie's decision tougher, or that would, set off his volatility like a volcano. And then we will see real change, whether that change is meaningful in terms of improvement, or whether it's change for change's sake. Like when you and I were coming back from Orlando and Joe Madden gets fired while I'm at the airport. You never know. You never know if it's something that's actually going to help, or if it's just like, okay, well, that's a bomb. Very cool. Mike Trout trade, though, at this point in time, not under consideration. We got a lot of stories this week about how still not even in the ballpark of consideration.
No, I'll tell you, Artie Moreno didn't trade Shohei Ohtani because I don't think he wanted that to be part of his legacy. If he ends up losing out on Ohtani and then trading Mike Trout, that is going to define his tenure. Losing those guys in less than a calendar year would be pretty brutal. I can't imagine that's going to end up being anything that is under serious consideration now, or even just going forward, especially with the no trade clause being present. I can't see it happening, but man, the rumors are going to only grow louder as the Angels become more and more of a mess. And I think I was trying to find a nice way of putting it, and mess was probably about as nice of a way as I could do that.
Speaking of the rumors growing louder too, I mean, again, not to turn the heat up on anyone unnecessarily, but the Houston Astros are 6-14. Now we can do a lot of podcasts in a row about how we don't buy the slow start, and we know this team is more talented than their record, and that's still true. I know the Houston Astros, even as currently constructed, without Justin Verlander, without Framber Valdez, are not a 6-14 team. They're not a 68-94 team. They're better than this. But you bank your wins in April, and you bank your losses too. And that AL West, the Mariners' offense is not there right now. It's been dormant. The Rangers are up and down, and the pitching issues and the woes have manifested themselves. Nobody's going to run away with it. No one's going to bury the Astros. They could have. They won't. But man, oh man, if anything, it just shows Astros fans who had all that heat on Dusty Baker last year, where they were going to ALCS after ALCS after World Series after World Series. All the Astros fans furious because he wouldn't play Yiner Diaz or whatever minor critique they had. Joe Espada, it's not an easy job. And he was a serious managerial prospect for a long time. And yes, the Braves show up at the wrong time. And nobody wants to run into them when you're already struggling. But when the rest of the roster doesn't look like an all-star team, Jose Abreu doesn't seem like the best signing in the world. You know, it could look like a frigid cold take in a week to say this, like all those fired Carlos Mendoza Mets fans now that the Mets have righted the ship. He's not on the hot seat. He shouldn't be, but managing is not easy. And just a reminder to everybody who, during the Dusty Baker era, all those Astros fans who were solving the problems from their couch with me and biscuit eating chips, it's not so simple.
No, it's not so simple at all. And you look at this Astros team. Obviously, they have a lot of talent, but they have flaws on this team. And I'm going to look at it in two different ways here. Joe Espada, obviously, this is about as discouraging of a start as you can possibly imagine. They're 6-14. They're falling out in that division, or falling back in that division, I should say, and just do not resemble the Houston Astros teams that we are used to at all. His seat, to me, is not hot. It should not be hot, because you have to have confidence in him to turn this around. He's been bench coach under AJ Hinch. He's been bench coach under Dusty Baker, and he has respect and trust throughout that entire organization, having been there as long as he has been. Also, who would have thought Dusty Baker, actually a good manager? Who could have seen that coming? But I think in the end they'll be fine, but this start is not ideal. But I think the most heat that should be shown toward this Astros team should be in the front office or even ownership, because when they ended up firing James Click literally days after winning the World Series, they ended up without a GM or someone running their baseball operations department, ended up going out and signing some of these free agents, and it has not worked out at all. And it was so easily avoidable. They could have easily kept James Click, which they should have done. I think that's not just a hindsight as 2020 thing. That is something that we saw in the moment of, like, how in the hell could this Astros team fire a World Series winning general manager just days after doing it? And it made no sense. I know there was differences between ownership and Click, but when you win, like, you put those differences aside to make it work. But I think that's where the most of this heat should go, because the roster construction is not what it once was. I think they'll be fine, but it's going to be hard, and it's going to take a lot of work from Joe Espada to do that. But the heat should go toward the front office and Jim Crane, because this was all avoidable and should have just never gotten to this point.
Yep. And that 2022 Astros team, of all these Astros teams that blitzed their way through the playoffs, kind of felt like the best one and the most complete one to me. And all of a sudden, last year's kind of felt like the weakest iteration. The 2020 team fought their way back from 3-0 down to force a Game 7, but 2020 was all over the place. That Astros team was under 500 in the playoffs, but they wouldn't have been if that had been a full season. I would say they went from the most complete Astros team to the weakest year over year. And now 2024, Rafael Montero contract aging like milk.
Yeah.
Jose Abreu contract aging like additional milk. And it's not like Josh Hader looks the cleanest in the early going either, not to throw more milk in the pile of milk, but it's not the greatest.
No, it's definitely not looking great. Obviously, the Montero and Abreu contracts, they were confusing in the moments, but the Hader one, I understood it, but it reeked of desperation, because as soon as they ended up losing Kendall Graveman for the year, they went all in on Josh Hader and ended up signing him within 48 to 72 hours, somewhere in that time frame, to a 5-year, $95 million deal. And it was the richest deal in terms of present day dollars in baseball history. They clearly loved what they saw from him, and he promised an increased usage, because in Milwaukee and also San Diego, he was limited to 1 inning in the 9th inning, just because he didn't want to tax his arm. But now that he's being used in different situations and being used more often, starting to struggle. I'm confident he'll end up bouncing back, but that is something that bears watching because he's doing something that he has not been asked to do throughout his career.
James Click's still with the Blue Jays too, right?
I believe so. I remember seeing him at the winter meetings this past year wearing Blue Jays stuff. So I'm pretty sure he's still with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, nope. He was fired, but he's got a bunch of cool Blue Jays gear. No, It does seem like, he's still with Toronto.
Yeah. No, exactly. But I'll tell you, James Click, you didn't deserve that. You did not deserve that at all. And the Astros right now are they're seeing the consequences for it right now, to say the least.
Yeah, however long this lasts, 6-14, a high impact, tough April. So we'll see if they're able to dig out of that. One quick question before we sign off from our viewers from the All-Star chat. And again, if you are an All-Star, join our call tonight. That's private for just All-Stars. We will record that, send that to anybody who misses. No worries. And there will be one again next month. But Josh from the All-Star chat with a question for the Zoom. What new manager is getting the best reviews from around the league? And this feels relevant because we're talking about Espada slumping. It also feels relevant just because, I think my answer in terms of the new manager I've been most impressed with is Carlos Mendoza, but I'm curious as to what you're hearing.
Yeah, I would say you can look at this a couple different ways. I think Mendoza is absolutely up there. I mean, with the Mets going 8-2 in their last 10 games, he definitely has gotten a lot of praise from people around the league. And I'm talking to agents who have players in the Mets. There's been a lot of praise for the job that he's done there. And there's a lot of optimism about the direction that franchise is heading in. I also have heard quite a bit of praise actually for Ron Washington. I know they're currently 9-9 in that division right now, but anyone who could have seen the Angels being 500, even 18 games into this part of the season, I did not see it come. I can't imagine there's many other people who thought that as well. But he's got that team playing hard. He's got them doing a lot of different things. He's got them believing right now. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it for the entire year, but he's done a really good job with not a lot of talent, and he's gotten some praise for it around the league.
I believe in him as well. Again, the roster, just not sure. I wish he'd gotten a second chance before this Angels team. But hey, it is what it is. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed your time with us on the Baseball Insiders. I know that we did. We enjoyed our time with you. Sorry we didn't get to any Padres talk today, Andrew, but we're trying to pick the trending topics every week. Padres hopefully crack the rotation next week. We'll see you on Monday. If the Padres have something that must be addressed, we will. Again, the Jacksons are all demanding our interest, so we're watching Jackson Merrill just like the rest of us. NL Rookie of the Year frontrunner right now. Depends on if you prefer him or Imanaga, I guess, but it's pretty close.
No, absolutely. But I'll tell you, sorry, Drew, for the lack of the Padres talk. We'll try to make that better for next week. But we appreciate everyone for tuning into the show. It was there's not much to talk about right now in baseball, but we ended up making it happen, and we turned out a good show once again.
I thought so too. If you're here now, make sure to stick with us for rumor season, of course. Trade deadline and the offseason is where we thrive, but we'll be here twice a week talking baseball, giving you the latest updates on injuries, scuttlebutt, whatever Robert's hearing behind the scenes. And as always, answering your questions. If you join us in the Discord or in the comments, get those in. We'll prioritize the All-Stars because they've earned it. They've earned a pat on the back. Can't lie. We're going to give our All-Stars a little hat tip. But if you're here in the comments, you got questions for us, we will address those as well, of course, around trends as you see fit. So please join us every Monday, Thursday, 3:30 Eastern. We'll be right here as well as on all podcast platforms in the audio version. So subscribe there, rate, review us, give a thumbs up to this video or give a thumbs down if you hated this video. But come on.
Yeah. No one's hating this video.
There's no way you hated this video. Yeah.
No, if they do, then they're wrong. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. Then they're wrong.
Flat out. Yeah. I mean, look, hey, hate. We're happy we got your view. And hey, see us again next week. Again, 3:30 on all on YouTube and on all audio platforms after the show's over. I'm Adam Weinrib. For FanSided Robert Murray. Hey, Robert. Good show, dude.
Good show. We'll see everyone in the All-Star chat later today. Join the Discord, join the All-Star channel. It's good stuff, but we'll see the rest of you on Monday.
Sounds good to me. We'll be here. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.